Is it possible the Red Sox could look into a reunion with one of their former aces? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and we continue our examination here of ways the Red Sox could add to this team in 2024, heading towards the trade deadline. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about a player who pitched with the Red Sox before and really took on the mantra of a workhorse, and also at some point in 2021, really took on a role of being the Red Sox ace number one pitcher, Mr. Nathan Eovaldi. We're going to be taking a look at why he could be a possible fit with this 2024 team, what it would mean to get him here, what it would take to get him here, and of course, whether or not this trade is actually realistic. But before we get into that, just a heads up, we're going to be live tonight on this channel right around 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be watching the Red Sox take on the Miami Marlins, trying to win this series tonight, talking about all the latest Red Sox news. These are a ton of fun, so if you haven't been to one yet, I highly suggest coming on by. Again, that is tonight, 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time on this channel. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Nate Eovaldi is having a pretty solid season with the Texas Rangers. Now, he did spend some time on the IL at some point this year, dating back to early May, where he spent 3 weeks on the IL with a groin strain. But since he's come back and before he went on to the IL, he's having a really solid season. It's a 3.45 ERA in 13 starts with a bit higher, but nothing too bad FIP of 3.97, a WHIP of 1.64, leading to a 1.14 ERA plus, about 14% better than the average pitcher in Major League Baseball. He is striking out more guys than he has over the past couple of years, striking out 24.7% of batters he's faced. Basically, one every four batters, Nate Eovaldi striking them out. He's also walking a bit more at 8.7%. Overall, he's holding opponents to a 675 OPS so far throughout the 2024 season, which is really solid. If he was currently on the Boston Red Sox, he would be their second best pitcher. For the Red Sox, statistically looking at why Nate Eovaldi fits, it makes a lot of sense why they could possibly target him coming up to this year's deadline, because this is also something we've sort of grown to expect from Nate Eovaldi. He has had this level of success in the majors dating basically all the way back to 2020. Since 2020, he's had a combined 3.70 ERA with a very slightly lower 3.62 FIP, 1.19 ERA plus, about 19% above league average production. That kind of consistency could be exactly what the Red Sox are looking for going into the second half of the season, mostly because for the reasons we've already sort of hammered home on this channel. Right now, the Red Sox are in complete unknown territory with basically their entire rotation. Having someone in there that you could sort of pencil in to say, hey, this guy's most likely going to have a sub-4 ERA for the entire year based on the last 5 years combined could be really important to solidifying this middle part of this rotation for the next couple of months. But it's not only statistics that make Nate Eovaldi a really interesting target for this Red Sox team. Another reason is because of the familiarity with the Red Sox market. Nate Eovaldi has played here. He's succeeded here. He's won a World Series here in Boston. And while the CBO may be different than what he's experienced in the past, there are still plenty of people within this organization, especially in this front office, that remember exactly who Nate Eovaldi could be in Boston. And with a market like Boston, having a guy who you know what he's most likely going to do could be a really intriguing factor for this Red Sox team. But even beyond that, I think one of the more underrated aspects of getting Nate Eovaldi back to the Boston Red Sox would be his veteran leadership. Nate Eovaldi was a leader of this pitching staff during the time of his residency in Boston, and to the point where Brian Bayo, in his speech once he got a extension with the Red Sox this offseason, specifically named Nate as someone who got him to this point, saying, quote, "Pedro is teaching me how to pitch, but Eovaldi was the one who showed me the confidence, how to be confident on the mound, and how to translate the information I get on the field." Having a veteran leader amongst a team which is full of inexperience, especially in this starting rotation, could be exactly what the Boston Red Sox are looking for. Again, this would be a guy who not only would perform well on the mound, but would help the team off the mound as well. Not Not to mention, if the Red Sox do legitimately have playoff aspirations this season, Eovaldi may be the best available pitcher or possibly available pitcher to help them push to a postseason, and then once they get there, perform. Eovaldi is known as a dude who shows up in the big moments. In fact, it's to a tune of a 3.05 ERA and a 2.84 FIP in 79 and 2/3 innings pitched throughout his postseason career. Again, most of them with the Boston Red Sox. Again, you take a look at the experience and the familiarity, and you say, yeah, there's a big reason why this fit is absolutely there. In my opinion, it's not 100% though. There are some concerns with Nate Eovaldi, the biggest one obviously being his extensive injury history. He's had a few injuries with the Red Sox, and he really hasn't pitched a full season, 30 or more games, more than twice in his entire career. That could be something the Red Sox look at that gives them hesitation as to whether or not they should go in on Nate Eovaldi. The other one, in terms of Red Sox dollars right now, he's a bit of a hefty price tag. Right now, to trade for him by July 30th would be to take on about $8 million. I don't know if that's something the Red Sox would be willing to do. However, again, in my opinion, in terms of just statistics and role on the Boston Red Sox, there is absolutely a fit here for Nate Eovaldi. So the question now becomes, what would it take to get him here? And is this a realistic option for this Red Sox team? But before we get into answering those questions, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Sox almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Just helps these videos out a ton, and it's the best way you can let me know you're enjoying the content we are putting out. Thank you all very much for taking a second in doing so. Let's get into answering those questions. In terms of the cost to bring Nate Eovaldi to the Boston Red Sox, hypothetically, it shouldn't be all that much. There are a couple of factors that are weighing down Nate Eovaldi's overall value on the open market. The first one is his age. He's 34 years old, going into his age 35 season next year. That is something that is absolutely going to bring his value down. We already talked a little bit about the money that would be attached to him, but you got attached $8 million to his contract. There are a couple incentives in there that could make it even higher, and there's also a vesting option that if Nate Eovaldi can get to 300 innings pitched between this year and last year, he has a player option worth $20 million. Obviously, makes him a bit more expensive than your average target, which absolutely brings the value down. And on top of that, we already mentioned his injury history. Hypothetically, looking at the value that Nate Eovaldi would bring in terms of trade, according to baseball trade values, you're looking at about $2.5 million. Now, in terms of Red Sox value, that would be about the same amount of value as trading over Manuel Valdez and Nathan Hickey. Now, again, I talk about this all the time. I'm not a trade guru. I'm not trying to make true hypothetical trades here. This is just to give you a perspective as to what it would potentially cost the Boston Red Sox to get him into a Red Sox uniform. Now, I say hypothetically here because as we talk about with most of these guys, there's usually a difference between a hypothetical trade value and what is actually reality, and I think that's again the case with Nate Eovaldi, because taking a look at the market itself going into the trade deadline with the way the playoffs are structured right now and how many teams are either in a playoff position or close to a playoff position, it's looking like the deadline is poised to be a seller's market. If the Rangers do make Nate Eovaldi available going into the deadline, there's most likely going to be a bit of a bidding war, and obviously bidding wars increase the value of a player, especially a starting pitcher that has a track record of pitching the way he has for an entire season for the last 4 years, 5 years, and counting now. So that could raise the price of what Nate Eovaldi realistically ends up costing this team. The other part of this is the playoff experience that we talked about. Nate Eovaldi is a absolute workhorse in the postseason, and for teams who are either trying to get into the postseason or solidify themselves going into a postseason, that is absolutely something that is going to be more valuable than his age or his contract might be. So realistically, you're probably looking at giving up a bit more for Nate. It's probably going to end up looking something like a Blaze Jordan, Chase Meidroth, and Reese McGuire, which would total out to more than double Nate's perceived value of, again, $2.5 million. And again, I just want to say, because I always get torched for these trades, this is a hypothetical trade to give you guys an assumption of value that would cost the Red Sox to get him here, maybe not what would actually take to do it. Now, the big question here in terms of figuring out whether or not this is a realistic trade option is figuring out whether or not the Red Sox would be willing to deal any of their prospects for a short-term rental. We talked about a very similar thing when we made our Pete Alonso video, right? Nate Eovaldi is potentially a free agent at the end of the year, and if he isn't, there's a $20 million price tag attached to his 2025 season. Are the Red Sox, one, willing to take on that money that it would cost to bring him here, and two, are they willing to give up the prospect capital that it would take to bring over essentially a rental? We know that the Red Sox philosophy right now is building for the future, not trying to totally win right now. Does Nate Eovaldi change that a bit? Is that vesting option something that scares the Red Sox or intrigues them going into 2025? I don't know what the answer is to that, but I have to assume that's going to play a really big factor into whether or not the Red Sox are even potentially willing to give up anything to bring Nate Eovaldi here. But it also takes two to tango. So looking at it from the Texas Rangers point of view, are they going to be willing to put Nate Eovaldi onto the trade market come this year's deadline? And this, I do think there is a realistic chance that the Rangers decide to move on from some of their shorter term pieces, mostly because right now the Rangers aren't following up their World Series run very well. They are 7 games under 500 with a record of 39-46. They're also 7 games back of first place in their division and 7 games back of a wild card spot. I think it is realistic to assume that there is a possibility come the trade deadline, the Rangers aren't exactly in a position to buy looking towards the postseason. But again, like we talked about, the playoff structure is a bit different this year, and the Rangers have a pretty solid roster right now. If they were to stay put or they were to add at the deadline, there is a chance that they are able to make up the 7-game difference between either division or the wild card race. So it's not guaranteed that the Rangers would want to put him up on the open market either, and even if they are, they're probably going to be looking for a pretty decent return. Overall, I think it's a really interesting conversation to have. I've seen it proposed a couple of times throughout Red Sox Nation, a return with Nate Eovaldi, and I absolutely love the idea. I loved Nate in a Red Sox uniform. I think he would do wonders in terms of his statistics and his off-field ability to really help this rotation solidify itself coming into the second half of the season here. But in terms of whether or not it's realistic, I don't know. I don't know where the Red Sox minds are going and what direction they want to go at this year's deadline. They're still sort of stuck in this middle ground here, despite the fact that the Red Sox are still playing pretty well. There isn't really any indication that the Red Sox are looking for short-term rentals, and I don't know if the Rangers are going to want to put him up. In terms of realism, I'm not too sure this is a realistic target, but I do think if he does become available, this absolutely should be someone on the Red Sox radar. It's not going to cost, even with a bidding war, anything super crazy in terms of prospect capital to get him here, and I think the value that he brings to this Red Sox team is sort of immeasurable, like we talked about when he was with the Red Sox, right? Before he left, we were talking about how much he impacts this team both on the field and off the field. Bringing that back and helping this young core push themselves towards a postseason could be a really smart thing to do. So I'm somewhere in the middle on this Nate Eovaldi idea. I would love it. I just don't know how realistic it would be. So I want your opinions in the comment section down below. Let me know. Is this a realistic trade target for the Boston Red Sox? And if it is it someone you would want the Red Sox to target? Plus, what would you give up to get Nate Eovaldi? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest possible Red Sox trade target in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Sox almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget, we are going to be live tonight on this channel, 6:35 p.m. Eastern time, to watch the Sox take on the Marlins and talk all things Red Sox. It's a ton of fun. I hope to see you guys there. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.